All right. Hey there. Peace and love, everybody. Hope that everybody is doing well on today. What is today? It's the 20th of March. Happy natal day to my sister-in-law, Barbara Thomason. Hope that she's enjoying an awesome day. Shout outs and much love to you, B. Hope that everybody is doing well on today. And pardon me, we're back for another time of just sharing some love and some light and doing the inner work to be the best people that we can possibly be, uh, embodying uh, a godly life in this journey that we call Earth. Is we're in this process of unfolding. Is it we're in this process of learning to live life the best that we possibly can to get the most out of our life experience while we're uh, sojourning through this few decades uh, and really help for us in our journey in support of that. And so um, sometimes we just focus on healing. Sometimes I'll kind of share a message. Um, Much love to everybody who's here. I always like to know who's here. So if you could just drop a quick comment in the chat saying hello, we certainly do appreciate that. We'd like to always like to know who's here, and we'd like to acknowledge your presence. It's interesting talking to a green dot on the computer as opposed to being live with actual humans. But at any rate, we have a topic for today, and what our topic for today is dealing with is shining light on your own shadows. Mm. Shining light on your own shadows. We'll get into that in just a moment. But before we do, I'd like for all of us who are here to just take a moment and kind of settle into this moment, to settle into this time and space called now, letting concerns for what lies ahead um, sit where it is, letting stuff from the past sit where it is, and just be present in this moment that we're here together right now. Okay. And so in that space, I want us to just kind of get in touch with our heart and just take a moment and just breathe in. Breathe in love into our hearts. That's why we're here, folks, is to love, to be loved, to experience love, to share love, to spread love and light. Okay. Um, Really just different frequencies of the same thing. But essentially, that's why we're here uh, to love God with everything that's in us, to love ourselves, and to love everybody else as we love ourselves. Okay. And so, in the process of that, let's face it, we all have some stuff that we go through in life. Hopefully, we also have stuff that we're growing through in life, and that we're not just getting stuck, that we're not just casting blame on other people, that we're not just playing the role of the victim. That doesn't mean there isn't some bold stuff that happens to us, some very unpleasant things that make their way into the world, uh, into the greater world, and into the world of our individual experience. That's very much the case. But yet, um, if what your desire is to play the role of the victim, that's cool. You can do that. Um, you can certainly use your free will in that direction. This probably isn't a video that you'll find that um, interesting to listen to if you just want to play the victim. No, this is about spiritual growth, the development, unfolding as being the best that we possibly can, and living really, truly, authentically empowered lives. Who wants to actually be empowered and live authentically empowered lives? Right? If you do, then you might want to stick around for what we have to share today. And if you are here and sticking around, I would love to know who's here. Just say hello. What's up? How you doing? Or whatever you want to say. Curly Conscious King, greetings to you, my brother. It's always good to see you in the space. Glad to have you here today. Many blessings to you. Okie dokie. And so here's I'm going to kind of share a little secret with you all. It's not really that much of a secret because I've shared this before. God created us in God's own image and likeness. We're made of the same stuff that God is made of, right? ah, from a biblical perspective, the Bible opens up saying that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, anybody know what God said? Yes. That's right. Let there be light. And you know what happened after that? There was light. And the essence of that light is God. God is light. God is love. Right? These are qualities of God. And because they're qualities of God and we're made in the image and likeness of God, those are also qualities in us. Those are also qualities in us. So at our core, at our essence is light. Love too, but I'm going to focus on the light part right now. At our core, our essence is light, right? We are beings of light. We are eternal beings. We are beyond this physical stuff. We notice a lot of the stuff that's going on in the physical, right? The stuff that we can touch and feel, right? It's tangible. We notice that stuff. And yeah, we have a physical body. Some people call it an earth suit. Some people call it a skin suit. We're human beings. We have hue, color, complexion. Uh, that's a function of being, spiritual beings living and a spiritual existence in the context of a physical reality. Okay. And so, what's something that happens when you shine light on a physical object? Greetings, Shirley Price Lawson. Yes, your essence is light. Yes, you are indeed. What is the thing that happens when you shine a light on something physical? Okay. Anybody want to put that in the chat? And I know that you're only going to hear it like 30 seconds after I say it. So I probably will have given the answer before you get an opportunity to type it. But if you shine a light on something physical, you can see in my background, okay? From the other room, there's light shining, and you can see on the wall, there are blinds that are open in the other room. There's a door right behind my head, and there's light shining from the other room through that door. There are blinds in the window, and you can tell that there are blinds because you can see what's that next to that picture. It will appear on your left of that picture. It's a shadow of the blinds. The light is coming in through the window. The blinds are physical, and the light shining on something physical creates a what? A shadow. It creates a shadow. There's scripture, and 1 Corinthians chapter 13. A lot of you are familiar with 1 Corinthians 13 because it talks about how love is patient and how love is kind and how I've got it on this necklace here. Love never fails. That's all from First Corinthians chapter 13. But further down, the last verse of that scripture actually says something interesting. It says that, let me pull it up here. Oops. For now, we're seeing through a glass darkly. That glass can, in some translations, it says mirror, darkly or dimly. In our reality right now, we're not seeing things as they actually are. We're seeing a very dimmed down version of it. We're seeing ourselves in a very dimmed down version of us. But there will come a time where we will actually be able to see beyond where we're seeing now. Okay. We're seeing things from a very dim perspective, a very limited perspective. We know things from a very limited perspective, even ourselves, but there will come a time where we shall know things very clearly, where we'll have a much greater understanding than we do now, that we'll know even as we are known. Hey, greetings, Reverend Shahira. You're on fire today, and I love me some you. I tell you, I sure do. Um, and so, the way that I relate to this, the way that I relate to this is in the context of the matrix. This healing system that I developed and worked with, transcending the matrix. That's the context that I kind of word this. So we going through life, we have these series of experiences, and there are things that you remember consciously. Most of the stuff that you've experienced is within your subconscious. Probably 95% or more dwells within your subconscious mind. Okay, what am I getting at? There are things that are going on in the background that aren't at the surface of your attention. But those things that are going on in the background impact how you see and experience things in your life experience, on your life journey, right? And so from the point of conception to this moment, there's nothing that you've technically forgotten. There are things that are stored somewhere in the cells of your body, in your DNA, from your life experiences. Everything that you've ever seen, everything that you've ever done, everything that you've ever smelled, tasted, spoken, heard, experienced, all of that is still in you. And a lot of that hangs out beneath the surface of your conscious thoughts, right? And what happens is some of those things that we experience, some of those things that we hear, some of those things that we're told, some of those things are things that are very affirming of us. Some of those things are things that speak light into us and speak life into us. However, some of those things are also things that we take in and we internalize that were not life affirming. Okay. Some of those things that we've experienced, traumas that we've experienced, difficulties that we've experienced, people speaking negatively of us, these things also sit stored within the cells of our body, in our cellular memory. Um, and they end up being kind of tucked away. And then how we end up seeing life is a function of those things. Okay. And so we view our life experiences, we view ourselves through the lens of, to put it plainly, our own experience, and to put it more plainly, through the lens of our own baggage. Okay. And we've all got some baggage. Some people have less baggage than others. Some people have done more to address and unpack their baggage. But we've all accumulated it. Not only that, but we don't just carry our own memories of our own stuff, but all of our ancestors before us as well. Okay. And so I say a lot of times that every day I speak names of my ancestors, um, and honoring and acknowledging them. I'm very clear that I stand on the shoulders of their prayers, that I'm the fulfillment of their hopes, dreams, and wishes. That and I intend for my life to represent the best of them, that I might achieve things that they weren't able to, and that I can honor them through the living of my life in such a way that that truly honors and glorifies God and will put a smile on their face from the other side of the veil, right? And I know that I get to experience so many wonderful things that my ancestors struggled with things that I don't have to because they did, right? And so I'm blessed because of that. And you are blessed because of that too. And the other side of that, it's kind of two-sided. There are things that they weren't able to fulfill in their lifetime. There was baggage that they accumulated in their lifetime that they didn't necessarily have the tools to deal with. There were things that there were traumas that they experienced that they didn't necessarily manage to figure out a way to reconcile. Okay. Within my ancestry, there are folks who were holding slaves, and there were folks who were uh, in bonds as slaves. These two fractioning divisions exist within me, right? And I've got to find a way to bring all of that into harmony, balance, and reconciliation. That's part of what I consider to be the journey and the responsibility of my life. And so, yeah, we get the benefit of the things that, uh, the seeds that we get to feed upon the fruit of the seeds that our ancestors sowed before us. We get to reap the benefits that we had nothing to do with bringing into effect. And yeah, the other side of that is within our DNA, within our memory, within our cellular structure. We carry the memories of those things that they had experienced in their past with the hope that we too can go one step further. We've received the passing of the torch. And hopefully we can break some patterns that they weren't able to break in their lifetimes, right? Hopefully we can achieve a level of growth and development, enlightenment, spiritual maturity, freedom, liberation. There are a whole lot of different words we can use this for the same thing in essence. But hopefully we can do that to a greater degree than they were able to. And hopefully our children and our children's children, as we pass the mantle on to them, will be able to do the same, that they'll be able to go to new levels and to new heights, right? And so in this process, as we go through life and we deal with people. We deal with people who have baggage. We deal with people who have issues. We deal with people who tap dance on our nerves sometimes, right? I will admit it. I'm a pretty spiritual person, basically mellow in terms of my temperament and disposition. But that doesn't mean I don't get irritated. Doesn't mean I don't get frustrated. Doesn't mean I don't get mad. It doesn't mean that people don't enter into my life that I don't feel my buttons pressed by. We all do. We all have that experience. But here's the thing. And I'm a person who, again, I've been on this journey for a minute. This isn't my first rodeo. Um, in terms of the healing work that I'm blessed to do, I'm able to get insight and see what the root cause of people's issues is. Their health issues, their mental health issues, and all kinds of stuff. And I feel very blessed to be able to do that and have been able to be a vessel of healing in a whole lot of people's lives over the last couple decades, across the planet. And there are things that I can see where people's issues are in a lot of situations in my own life as I'm interacting with the people in my life. I can sometimes see their issues, right? And you might be able to identify people's issues when you're dealing with them. You might be able to discern what's the difference between your stuff and another person's stuff. Sometimes, maybe, right? You may be able to determine, okay, you're projecting your stuff on me. Here's the thing. You probably do that too. You're probably projecting some of your stuff on other people. Hmm. Jesus says this in profound teaching. He says, this is in like Matthew chapter 7, verses 3-5. He says, hey, listen, how are you going to look at your brother? How are you going to look at this other person and get on them about the little speck of dust that they have in their eye and not recognize that you've got a plank in your own eye, a 2x4 in your own eye. Okay? That's kind of hypocritical. It's better that you remove this big old plank from your own eye, that you can see more clearly how to get that little speck of dust out of the other person's eye. Let's bring this to real life experience. A lot of times we feel tempted to blame people. A lot of times we feel tempted to, um, to extend invitations to guilt trips to folks. Okay, a lot of times and the closer a person is to us, the easier it is for us to do it. We get in this blame game. We get in these ego battles. Boy, don't we get roped into that sometimes? And we rope other folks into it. We end up locking horns in these battle of egos, these battle of wills. You can never win an ego battle with somebody else. You can never win an ego battle with somebody else. Anytime you're in an ego battle with somebody else, neither one of you win. The ego wins. The little part of you, the little part of them that's trying to edge God out. Okay. Either both of you win or neither one of you win. Okay. And so we get involved in these power struggles. We get involved in these power struggles because this matrix that I refer to it as a matrix of third dimensional beliefs of separation and limitation. We see, because we're in this physical realm, we see ourselves as different from each other. Right? The reality is that the rain falls on all of us just alike. We're all breathing in the same air. We all ultimately have the same basic needs: to love and to be loved, to feel some sense of purpose in life, to feel like our life is making a difference, to feel seen, to feel heard. Every single one of us, from the youngest to the oldest, from the most educated to the least educated, from the holiest to the most despicable, all of us have these same fundamental needs. Okay. And somewhere along the way, we get the idea, in terms of limitation, is if my needs are met, if your needs are met, then maybe my needs aren't going to met. There's only so much good to go around. There's only so much love to go around. There's only so much joy to have around. And so then we start hoarding based on some fear that we've got. Okay, we see people as different than us. Maybe they look different than us. Maybe they love different than us. Maybe they worship different than us. Maybe they vote differently than us, right? Maybe they adorn themselves in their clothing differently than we do. Maybe they speak different from us. Maybe they eat differently than we do. And we get this idea that because there's difference, then somebody must be deficient. College biology professor, I heard him say that a species requires diversity to exist. It is in the infinite wisdom of God that people look the way that they do and are in different parts of the world and speak differently and all of these different things. That's according to the infinite wisdom of God. Okay? According to the infinite wisdom of God. Scripture appeared on my phone an hour and 9 minutes ago, 12:15. Every day I get scriptures that pop up on my phone at 7 o'clock a.m. I get scriptures that pop on my phone at 12:15 p.m. And scripture just popped up on my phone talking about how God's ways are not our ways and God's thoughts are not our thoughts. God's ways and thoughts are so much higher than ours. And so, in the infinite wisdom of God, God saw fit to make us different, to grant us each uniqueness. There's 7.8 billion people on the planet. No two have the same fingerprint. How profound is that? We were made to be different, not because any of us has to be deficient, but because we're viewing things through this lens of We can refer to it as this dim mirror. We can refer to it as the plank in our eye. We can refer to it as the matrix of illusion. Whatever your languaging on it is, we're not seeing things clearly. Okay. And so it's so easy to look and see what other people's issue is. Even when it's not really their issue, we're seeing it through the lenses of our own stuff. Have I done it? Absolutely, I have. And I'm having a pretty good suspicion that you have too. We all have. None of us get it right 100% of the time. We're all a work in process. But the key is to be able to identify those areas where there's room for improvement within us. Identify those areas where there's room for growth within us. Identify those areas where we have to acknowledge within ourselves that we're just seeing a piece of the picture. There's something that we don't know. There's some areas where we may need to give some people some grace. God knows some grace has been extended to us, and we need to be able to extend some grace to other folks sometimes. We are light. That is our essence. It's the essence of that other person you're dealing with in your life too. It's the essence of those other people over there too. Their essence is light too. That's why scripture says that we're not wrestling against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities and forces of darkness in high places. It's why the scriptures say that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God through the tearing down of strongholds. We all have different stuff that's holding on to us that we need to release the shackles from ourselves and allow ourselves to be set free, right? There are areas where we have some stuff that's going on in our blind spot that we don't have any clue is there, that serves as a filter for how we see the world, how we see other people, and how we see ourselves, right? If we're to be truly children of God, walking in the way that God would have us to go, then we have to find a way to be really profoundly honest with ourselves. How do we get really honest with ourselves? Yeah, you're light, but you got a body too. You got some physical stuff going on too. And when you shine the light on something physical, a shadow is created. And so, what are the areas in your life where there's a shadow? Okay. That shadow is going to continue to dwell there until you shine the light on it. It's going to continue to dwell there until you shine the light on it. Until you shine the light on it, you're going to continue to cast blame on other people. Until you shine the light on it, you're going to have some issues that you're going to call somebody else's issues, when really you're creating an issue for somebody else. I'm constantly looking at myself because I'm committed to my growth. And there are so many times I just don't get it right. There's so many times I miss the mark. We all do. I got to extend that grace to me too. You got to extend that grace to yourself too. That's part of shining that light on the shadows. You know, there may be some feelings that you might have that you feel uncomfortable addressing. You might need to shine some light in that area. All right. The darkness will remain until the light is shown on it. The darkness will continue to exist until the light is shown on it. And the thing about the darkness is you don't have to cuss at the darkness. You don't have to banish the darkness. You don't have to get angry with the darkness. All you have to do is turn on the light. All you have to do is turn on the light. I got this light right here, sitting right next to me. If I turn it off, the room gets a little bit darker. Okay? I don't have to get upset because the light is bad. I mean, because it's dark. And it's not really that dark because it's light outside. All I have to do is turn on the light. It's a little bit too bright. All I have to do is turn on the light, and the darkness disappears in the presence of the light. And the darkness comprehended it not. Speaking of the light, the darkness doesn't know what to do with the light, so it just disappears, right? And so, if we're really going to be committed to our own path, if we're going to hope to have harmonious relationships with other people, we got to be willing to look at our stuff. We got to be willing to look at our own stuff. And before we go being too quick to cast judgment on somebody else, let's take a look at ourselves. Chances are the thing that we're judging in somebody else is a thing that exists within us that we just don't want to look at. And we're projecting on them because they're actually serving as a mirror for us. They're serving as a mirror for us. Really, they're a clear mirror, but we're seeing it through a glass dimly. We're not seeing it clearly because we're too busy wanting to project on somebody else. Oh, gosh, don't we do this, people? We do it all the time. We do it all the time. Stop. Let's do something different. Let's do something different. Is it empowering you to be talking about how somebody else is always wrong? Is that making you feel better? Is it adding joy to your life? Is it bringing you peace to point the finger? When we point the finger at somebody else, we still have three pointing back at ourselves. Okay, that's not helping us. It's not helping anybody else. Here's the thing. The reason that you have issues is because somebody who had issues put some stuff on you and you didn't know how to process it. And then you started putting issues on other people, and then they started putting those same issues back on you. And it becomes this vicious cycle. It becomes this vicious, self-sustaining cycle. Okay. But that's not the only cycle that's possible. Guess what? My grandfather used to say all the time, you can't plant corn and expect to grow tomatoes. Or maybe he said the other way around. You can't plant tomatoes and expect to grow corn. Scripture says it this way: God is not mocked. Whatsoever you sow, that shall you also reap. And so the stuff that we're experiencing in our lives, if you have ears to hear, listen to this. The stuff that we're experiencing in our lives is the fruit of the seeds that we've sown. The fruit of the seeds that we've sown. And so, Paul Robinson, greetings to you, my brother. Good to see you. If we want to have if we want to dine at a different table, or if we want to eat upon something a little bit differently, we've got to sow differently. If we're experiencing heartache and chaos and frustration and negativity, then there's something differently that we're going to need to sow. We're going to need to shine some light on, why is it that I feel so negative? Why is it that this person pushes my buttons? You know, again, I'm not beyond all that stuff. I experience all that stuff too. I feel irritated with folks sometimes. I feel frustrated sometimes. I feel disappointed sometimes. I'm going to use this example of irritation. Nobody has the power to irritate me. Nobody has the power to irritate me. I can only be irritated if the irritation is in me. I can only be irritated if the irritation is in me. And that's something I'm real clear about. Now, can that irritation be triggered by somebody's words or somebody's actions? Absolutely, it can. But they're not coming to bring me a problem. They're coming to bring me a gift, to show me me. What is it that I need to address within me? Where is the shadow in me that I need to shine light on? What is the true source of my irritation? Are there maybe some boundaries that I need to set? Is there a different way that I need to be looking at things? Are there some areas where I'm not seeing myself and they're actually just presenting to me a version of me that I haven't reconciled? All of these things are things that can come up that are worth looking at. Okay. And by the way, I mentioned boundaries. A lot of times we think of boundaries as something we set for other people. And we want to bar people from crossing our boundaries. Boundaries aren't really, what I've come to learn is boundaries aren't really so much something that we set for other people. Boundaries are something that we set for ourselves. Boundaries are it's not that if you do this, then I'm going to punish you with this. No, that's not, that's not the real point of the boundary. The boundary is something that you set for yourself. It's still an if-then scenario, but if this happens, then this is how I'm going to respond. And then it becomes about you taking ownership for your stuff rather than what somebody else is doing and how they're violating you. Okay. Now this stuff isn't for the faint at heart. This is just for the folk who are concerned with your own growth, development, and unfoldment. Those who want to be truly, authentically empowered. This is not the way of the faint at heart. The way of the people who want to continue to, eat up the benefits of victimhood. And when I say that, I say that with all genuineness. I'm not saying that to beat up on anybody or to invalidate anybody's experience. There's some folks who've experienced some horrendous things. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is us deciding to take full responsibility for our lives, the direction that our lives are going. And again, it's easy to see where somebody else is messing up. It's easy to see what somebody else is doing wrong. But it's important that we take a clear look at ourselves. The master said, if your eye is single, single in this context is in not fragmented. To put it another way, if your eye is whole, then your whole body will be filled with light. I might get up and dance on that, right? If your eye is whole, your whole body will be filled with light. And if your whole body is filled with light, there's no shadow because the light is hitting it from every angle. The shadow only exists when the light is blocked. The shadow is a function of the light being blocked. When the light is shining on something in one area and there's darkness on the other side of where it's being, on the other side of where the light's shining. But if the light is shining all around, then there's no space for the darkness to hide. There's no shadow that's there anymore. Now it's a journey. It's not somewhere that we're necessarily going to get overnight. Okay. You spend a whole lifetime on this journey, learning who you really are. Learning who you really are and living that out. Okay. We are all beings of light. And we're all in the process of remembering that. We're all beings of light, and we're all in the process of remembering that. And what helps us to remember that is us constantly relooking at things. Okay. We're just seeing a fraction. We're seeing through unclear lenses. We're not seeing things from the God perspective. We're not seeing things from, in a lot of situations, we get in arguments with other people. We're seeing it from our perspective. We're not seeing it from their perspective. And so we're focused on winning. Winning and arguing. We're focused on our ego winning instead of their ego winning. Guess what? If your ego wins, you're the bigger loser in the situation. Because then you want to rely on that. You want to rely on the part of you that's edging God out rather than rely on the presence of God at work in you and operating from that space. Instead of using the carnal weapons, using the spiritual weapons. Okay. And Listen, I got this bracelet on right now, this copper bracelet. It's quoting Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23, that says, guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it flow all the issues of your life. I've said many times on here before. A lot of times we think guard your heart as being who you let in your heart. It's more what you let in your heart. It's more what you let in your heart. What kind of stuff you have festering in your heart? Are you letting your heart be filled with light, or are you letting your heart be filled with darkness? Are you entertaining resentment and animosity and bitterness and guilt and shame? Or are you filling your heart with forgiveness and understanding, compassion and peace, joy? You know, those are the things that determine the seeds that we're planting, the seeds that we're sowing in our lives, right? And as a function of the seeds that we sow, that's what we eat. We eat the fruit of the seeds that we have sown. And so, again, I want to encourage all of us. I want to encourage from a deep place in my heart. I want to encourage all of us to really be kind towards ourselves and to be kind towards others. Because the fact of the matter is, all of us have been through some stuff. We've all been through some challenges. And all of us have had times along the way where we really didn't know exactly how to deal with it, where we were coping with life the best that we knew how. And that's true of you, and it's the same of the other folk that you come in contact with, the folks who trigger you sometimes. Don't get mad at people because they trigger you. They're bringing you the gift of being able to see where your shadows are. Focus on shining light where the shadow is, and you'll see something magical happen. Either they'll just disappear from your life if they choose to stay toxic, or you'll get to experience a totally different experience of them. You'll get to have a totally different experience of them. Maybe they'll change and behave in a way that vibes well with you, or maybe they won't change, but you're seeing things differently and they don't have to. And you just accept them where they are. And so, going back to where we started off, First Corinthians chapter 13 in the context of how we right now just see through a glass darkly, but we'll eventually see face to face, know and understand very clearly. Okay. But if we scoot up that chapter, the unconditional love of God is patient. The unconditional love of God is kind. The unconditional love of God doesn't envy, and it's not boastful, and it's not proud. The unconditional love of God doesn't seek its own way. Mm. Ponder that for a second. The unconditional love of God doesn't seek its own way. The unconditional love of God doesn't delight in evil. The unconditional love of God rejoices with the truth. The unconditional love of God bears all things, believes all things. The unconditional love of God in addition to all of those things, it endures. It endures. it trusts, it hopes, and in the final analysis, it never ends. It never fails. In the end, love always wins. Mm. And this is why Moses said, and why Jesus quoted him, that the first and the greatest commandment is to love God with everything that's in you, all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And the second one was like unto it. Love your neighbor as yourself. For you to love your neighbor as yourself, work on seeing yourself as God sees you. Look at all of the shadows and shine light on them. That's how you remove the plank from your own eye. And then you will be filled of light and you'll be able to see clearly what's going on with these other folks. And you may realize that, oh, I was a bigger part of the problem all along than I ever recognized. I'm telling you, life has humbled me so much, so many times. Oh gosh, and if you're willing to, you can be humbled by it too. And I'm not talking about in terms of being humiliated, but I'm talking about the awe of God is the beginning of wisdom. Just being able to sit and stand in awe of God. Oh, goodness, God, you revealed to me something that I was not seeing at all. There have been so many times I've cast judgment on other people. I had no clue how judgmental I was. I didn't know I was judgmental like that. But regularly, God shows me a piece of the puzzle that I did not see. And I'm like, man, okay, I was in error there. I'm casting this judgment upon this person. I didn't know their story. And as a matter of fact, where they were coming from wasn't even wrong. The issue was in me. But that's the goodness and the grace of God at work. Because God doesn't go and tell me, shame on me, you bad boy. As a function of seeing differently, I naturally want to change. Not out of a sense of guilt or shame, but just because I want to be better. I want to do better. I want to express love more freely and more fully. I want my light to beam more brightly. Okay. And I want to embody the goodness of God in my life. And because of that, the change is natural. Okay. If you can dwell in that space, you will find without a doubt that God's grace is sufficient, because it really truly is. God's grace really truly is sufficient. God has extended a lot of grace to you in your mess. And yes, you've had some mess, and you've started some mess too. Go ahead and admit it. Call it like it is. You've started some mess too. In situations where there wouldn't have been any mess, right? There have been times where you've been looking for a fight. You were pissed off and you just need an excuse to express it. Go ahead and admit it. And God has been gracious to you in the midst of that, right? God has been gracious to you in all of your mess and all of your stuff starting. Maybe we can extend a little of that grace to other folks too. God has truly forgiven you for your mess. Maybe we can forgive folks a little bit too. And while we're in the process of doing that, we might even realize, you know what, maybe there wasn't actually even anything to forgive. Maybe I'm the one that needs the forgiveness. Maybe I need to forgive me for the places and situations I put myself in, for the judgments that I cast, for the disparaging comments that I made about myself, the negative self-talk I had, the stuff that I didn't think that I deserved. And so I settled for something that really was not befitting of a child of God. Right? And we extend that grace to ourselves too. It's a lot easier to extend the grace when we recognize how much we need it ourselves. Okay. But that requires a degree of humility. And that's what Jesus was aiming to do in this situation where he's talking to folk. Listen, I get it. You see an issue with this person over here, but you're only seeing a part of it. You're only seeing a piece. And the reason that you're only seeing the piece is because you've got this stuff going on inside of you. And that's distorting your perspective. Clear that out. Clear out what you've got going on inside of you. It's easier to point the finger at somebody else. It's easier to say what somebody else needs to do. It's easier to see what another person's issues are. But that can be a distraction a lot of times from what our own stuff is. And the more mature approach is to really look deeply at what our stuff is. To really look deeply at what our own stuff is, not to get caught up on it, but to acknowledge it, to shine the light on it, and to be able to move forward from a more healthy, more honestly, more truthful space, right? And so that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Dr. Kafira, peace and many blessings to you, a bunch of love to you. And I hope that you all have been able to get something out of this that you find to be of value. And I have to admit, in a lot of ways, none of us are quite as good as we think we are, and at the same time, not quite as bad as we think we are either. Okay. The more we keep our hand in God's hand, the more we genuinely, truly, honestly, and sincerely ask to have our own selves revealed to us, the essence of us, the light within us, as well as those shadow areas where we can shine light, the more empowered we are. How do you know that you are the light? You know that you are the light when light becomes all that you ever see. I like how David put it in the 139th Psalm. It's so profound. Whither shall I go from your presence, or whither shall I flee from your spirit? If I ascend into heaven, you're there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. If I take the wings of the morning or get lost in the othermost parts of the sea, even there, woo! Even there, you got me covered. And then goes on to say, the light and the dark are both alike to thee, because all God is seeing is light. We see light and dark. We see good and evil. We see in the polarity. We see the shadow. And what we see is a function of our own limitation. The more we're able to have a broader vision, and we get to that point that where all we see is light, that's how we know that we are the light. Again, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I love you all. I'm sending a bunch of love your way. And as always, catch you next time.